In the world of Colony, while the focus is put on insects, other beings relating to real life can also be found. I'm talking here about the Sorasal, who, from the perspective of ants or butterflies, look like gigantic beasts, but for us can be identified as animals from the Chordata phylum, which are the ones that are closer to us in size and taxonomy. The sectants see them as mythical beings and a sort of force of nature, with each Sorasal fulfilling a certain purpose, either affecting the lands of Aoiama or sectants themselves. Today I want to talk about these beasts, their backstory, individual purposes, as well as how they relate to their real-life inspirations. The history of the Sorasal can be found in the Song of Origins, which I've summarized in my last video, but didn't delve too much into the lore surrounding these beings. So, going back to that legend, S and the other Asatari created Aoiama, meaning nest, and laid eggs there with its future inhabitants. When Zeg the Sanguine prematurely called for the eggs to hatch, one of them failed to do so, and so he crushed it. That egg, after being imbued with the light from Su the Violet, basically turned into a seed, which after being planted, would grow into the mother tree, and later give birth to the secton races. The other eggs, however, did hatch, but as it was prematurely, they produced monstrous beings that appeared as just formless flesh with horns and claws. They, in turn, were healed by light from S himself, which made them take shape and grow some more normal features, like limbs, wings, or tails, and were also given the name Sorasal, meaning the Great Beasts. With a blessing from S and Su, the Sorasal dwelled and multiplied on Aoiama. During that time, they tended to the broken egg, which, as I've said, would grow into the mother tree, and that name actually came from the Sorasal themselves. After time, some of the beasts grew prideful and decided that only they should have access to the sweet fruit produced by the tree, and so they formed a covenant to obtain control of it. However, they were fought off by the other Sorasal who defended the tree and denied them access completely, to the point that the prideful began to starve, and everything escalated when one of them killed and devoured one of the guardians. And so a war broke out, during which the mother tree gave birth to the original sectan races. We don't really know the aftermath of that war, only that the Sorasal survived to the current times of the story and had some sort of offsprings. According to what sectants believe, there are now 9 different groups led by the original individuals, which I'm gonna talk about right now. Starting off with Jula, a mighty creature with the largest wings on Aoiama. He is responsible for upholding and creating the law of this land, together with S and Su. This might connect to the fact that the Asatari are visible to sectants in the form of lights in the sky, which are most likely literal stars, so a being who can fly is kind of closer to them. Like the sectants, each Sorasal kind is based on a specific real-life taxonomic rank, or ranks, and Jula represents the Accipitridae family, which consists of predatory birds, like hawks, eagles, or old world vultures. Another winged Sorasal is Vo, and she currently has one of the most interesting stories connected to her, as she is the first and only being to travel from Aoiama to the Dreamlands with her physical form. The Dreamlands are a meta-spiritual realm that every sectant goes to after death, and they are separated from Aoiama by a void known as the Wretched Hollow, a void which was breached by Vo. In result, her physical presence was subjected to what is called the Deep Loss, powers which altered her body, and now she is torn between all 3 realms, hunting for food during the evenings on Aoiama. The concept behind Vo seems simple, but very effective, being based on the Strigiformis order, which are owls, animals associated in some cultures with darkness and death, and Vo's imposing presence to the sectants has a more metaphysical nature, with the realm of death reflected in her eyes. Why did she break into the Dreamlands, and what even are those mysterious deep loss? All of that remains to be seen. Moving on to the more grounded Sorasal, we have Ulfar, a cunning war leader whose mouth is filled with swords. He is said to be present at every battle fought by the sectants, observing them from a short distance and enjoying the slaughter. As a fun fact, Ulfar in the Old Norse language means something like wolf warrior, and I think it's very fitting here, as he is based on wolves, with his kind encompassing the Canidae family but also the Felidae. As to the sectants, they are similar enough. Next we have Nara, whose real-world inspiration are members of the Ursidae family, which are bears, and like bears, she goes into hibernation in the winter, during which her mind resides in the Dreamlands, as it looks like to be a realm to which people of Aoiama go to not only after death, but also during sleep, hence the name. In doing so, she is a reminder for many sectants to take rest after hard work, and personally I think that is an important thing to have. But when the spring comes, Nara wakes up and emerges to help tend to the land's rebirth, so she serves a somewhat similar role to that of Persephone from the ancient Greek mythology. This Sorasal is also the first one we know to have some special connection to a particular sectant race, that being the Apoi, as shortly after the exodus from the Mother Tree, Nara destroyed their second hive, most likely because she wanted the honey inside. That event was quite important for the history of the Apoi, as some of them believed it to be a punishment for their own hubris, and started to resent their queen, which ultimately led to them splintering off and starting their own Apoi kingdoms. Matching with the Sorasal of spring, we also have the Sorasal of autumn, that being Kel. He walks through the lands to heal the soil scorched by the summer light of S, so most likely Aoiama's sun, but his steps also remove the plant life of the earth in preparation for winter. Kel is a symbol of an important balance on Aoiama, a reminder to sectants that all which is given must be taken back. As for the real-life inspiration, this Sorasal is based on the Cervidae family, like elks, deers, or moose, with his notable features being the crown of many horns and feet adorned in wood, likely referencing their antlers and durable hooves. A similar Sorasal to Kel is the long-horned Vrixos, who takes care of the land by fertilizing the earth so that grass and flowers may grow, from which he also eats himself, as his inspiration is the Bovidae family. Symbolically, he is a reminder to give back in time what was given to you, so pretty much the same idea as Kel's, but from the perspective of the subject and not the object. Next we have Batul, the largest of all Sorasal. This one is so massive and powerful that he is able to devour the seas and cause earthquakes with his every step, terraforming the land. This illustrates to the sectants that their every action can have tremendous impact on the world. As you might have guessed, Batul's inspiration is the Elephantidae family, though it is said that his kind also includes the Rhinocerotidae family. Here I want to take time to talk about a specific aspect of the real-world inspirations. We know from developer Q&As that the ecosystem of the currently explored lands of Aoiama is based on central to southern California, and while in the case of sectants they do match with their counterparts that live there, some liberties have been taken with certain Sorasal. Batul is one of those examples, but surprisingly his presence was explained by the devs, as the elephants being an invasive species that came from abandoned zoos, and this has a lot of implications for the whole world of Colony, but that's a topic for another time. To be honest, I'm glad they expanded the pool of sources for the Sorasal, as having elephants, literally the largest land animals on Earth, in the world focus on insects, is a great way to show the sheer scale of Aoiama from the sectant's perspective. Continuing with Sorasal based on animals that could have been in those zoos, we have the mighty dragon Fiel, representing large reptiles from the Varanidae family and the Crocodilia order, like crocodiles, monitor lizards, or Komodo dragons. Here the dragon reference might actually manifest in the fantasy aspect of fire breathing, as we also know from one Q&A that creatures called Gek can indeed breathe fire, and they are said to represent small lizards and geckos, so they might be an example of the previously mentioned Sorasal offsprings. But back to Fiel, he has, in my opinion, one of the most interesting roles from all Sorasal, as he wanders near ground, being drawn to those in need of inspiration, whispering to them his ideas, seemingly without any gain for himself. I'm very curious as to just what Fiel's ideas are, and what his whole goal is, as on one hand he seems to be quite altruistic, but on the other he has the vibes of a sneaky snake that will try to manipulate people, so it's very interesting to see where that goes. And lastly, we have Grul, whose inspiration are hawks that comprise the Suidae family. With thick hide and short tusks, he wades through Aoiama's dirt and mud, which he is said to particularly like. Grul is one of the smallest Sorasal, but is nonetheless important to sectants, who see him as a symbol of resolution against breaking oaths of any kind. And those are all the main Sorasal. From the artwork we can see how gigantic they would seem to a sectant, and the depictions made by sectants themselves lean more into the mythological aspect, with exaggerated features that honestly make a lot of them look a bit creepy. There's still a lot we don't know about them, mainly how did they originally multiply, and what is the difference between the main Sorasal and the offshoots, which may be what the texts refer to as Sora. I'll be looking forward to seeing what roles they will play in the main story of Colony, but for now, I thank you for sticking with me till the end, and I wish you a well spent day.